Okay, recording in progress. There's so many people on this call. Lovely, I can't believe it. I was like, I don't know what it's like out there in the world, but here in Sweden, it's like a long holiday, like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of a long thing, and everybody's away. And I thought that maybe not so many people are going to show up. But look at you all. Amazing. So beautiful. All right, so I'm a little bit all over the place. I think I'll just hand it over to Adam Wilson so that he can say a few things while I collect myself. How's that?
Sound, sounds great. Can you hear me, Matthias?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. It's really a pleasure to get to cheer on Matthias today and the beautiful work that he's done and practiced clearly. Um, I know Matthias has a little story maybe to get us started about how we got to meet. This is Maisie, the farm pup, who's on my lap, and Matthias didn't get to meet her because she arrived at the farm a week and a half after he was here. I'll pass it back to you, Matthias.
All right. Thank you. Yes. So this story that you're about to see, maybe some of you have seen it already. It's been live on the Campfire Stories website for about 2 weeks. But this story fell into my lap in a very obvious way. You know how sometimes the universe shows very subtle signs for you to maybe choose this direction? Well, in this particular case, the signs were not very subtle. They were just like in my face. It all began when I had a conversation with my friend Dougald Hine about the fact that I was going to Canada last autumn to make a film with Stephen Jenkinson. And he said, well, if you go to that part of Canada, you should really go see this guy. It's not that far of a drive. It's just across the border into the US in the northern part of New York State, where there's this guy who runs a farm and he's learned everything from the old time dairy farmers in Vermont, the old timers. And he just produces food and gives everything away. And it really sounded like a dream or like a very, like, could that be real kind of a thing? And I made a mental note, but it got back, like somehow back in the back of my mind. And I wasn't actively thinking about it. But then I got, maybe a week or two later, I got an email from somebody named Adam Wilson. And I did not connect the dots at all. Adam was just, I think, congratulating me on another film. I think, well, you can chime in if I'm saying the wrong thing, but I think you were saying something about another one of my films. And we ended up having a conversation on Zoom, just like this. And it was only maybe 15 minutes into the conversation that I realized that this is the guy that Dougald Hine was talking about. And so when that happened, and so I was basically already in conversation with this person running this beautiful project, and I immediately knew at that point that I have to go. Well, I had to ask him first, but thankfully he said yes. But I knew that I had to attempt to go see him at the farm and find out if this was really true. And one other funny little detail, when I crossed the border from Canada to the US, and I was really nervous because I had all kinds of expensive gear, and you're not supposed to go across the borders with all that gear. You're supposed to have something called a carnet, and I was like nervous about that. And so I was like a little bit like now, like chat, like my mouth was going. Um, and and you know the customs people are kind of brusque and not very friendly. And he said, "What are you doing in this country?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to see a guy who's farming and he's giving everything away." And he just looked really, really sour. And he was like, "Well, how does he make a living?" And I said, I don't know. That's what I'm going to go there and find out." So he let me through, and the result is the film that you're about to see. And with that little story, I'll pass it back to you, Adam.
So when Matthias arrived here, well, we'd already had a beautiful conversation on the computer, and Matthias's way kind of put me at ease right away that this person was someone that I would love to host at the farm. But then when he arrived, he quickly said to me, "We're not filming yet. You have to stop saying important things." It has to be, otherwise it won't be like it's the first time when we film tomorrow. And then he kept saying this all through the first evening, and we're having dinner. I thought, well, what else are we going to talk? What are we? I only enjoy talking about important things. So I'm just gonna send us into the film with one little quote that was quite important to me early on, and it comes from a book called The Gift, which the title alone might let you know that it had an influence on my work. So Lewis Hyde, after immersing himself in all the different ways that cultures around the world have understood food, for anything from food to money to shared life as a gift, he wrote this little line that if you've read anything I've written, you've probably read it. He said, "Our generosity may leave us empty, but it is then our emptiness that tugs gently at the whole until the thing in motion returns to replenish us." Gives me shivers still all these years later. Our generosity may leave us empty, but it is then our emptiness that tugs gently at the whole until the thing in motion returns to replenish us. And the question that I'll send you into the film with is, what is that hole? What words do we have, or might we come up with for that hole that we're tugging gently upon? Back to you, Mattias.
Thank you, Adam. I want to see if I can share my screen. And before I give you the link to the film, which I'll share in the chat, I want to see if I can share my screen and just show a few settings. So this is the film right here. It's going to open up like this. I want to bring your attention to this cog. Can you see this cog over here that says settings? If you click on that, there's a nasty button on top that's called stable volume. You want to keep that off like this. So that's the one thing. The second thing is that if you know you have good fast internet, you can go to the quality button and just bring it all the way to the top, to the maximum. And if you know that your internet is a little iffy, you can just leave it on auto like that. And the third thing is that you can choose to have subtitles on by going to the CC button here. And then after you've clicked the CC button, you can go back to the cog here and you can choose in the subtitle menu. And right now we have these Croatian, Dutch, English, German, Italian, Spanish, Swedish to choose between. So those are those things. And now I'm going to see if I can bring myself out of screen sharing. I just put in the chat the link to the film, and I just now released it publicly about 2 minutes ago. So you'll be the first people to see it. And I suggest the film is about 18 minutes. And so let's meet back here in 20 minutes. So to give everybody a moment to watch it and maybe go make a cup of tea or whatever needs to be done for 2 more minutes. It seems that most people are back. I had the film running in the other room, so it just finished over there. So maybe it seems like it's finished for most of you as well. Let's see. I thought I saw Boris on the call. Boris is the film's editor. Are you here, Boris, or are you not here anymore? If you are here, Boris, please unmute yourself. Maybe he's not here right now. Anyway, maybe we'll get to Boris at some point. He's the film's editor, and he's also the person who put together the beautiful music. He used a song from an artist called Jonas Kjellstrand, and the song had lyrics to it, but Boris and Jonas pulled the song apart together and put it back together to fit the film. And so without the lyrics, and instead with added violins or violin singular and saxophone, I believe. And so Boris has done a tremendous job with this film, but maybe I don't see him now, so maybe he's not here right now. All right. We are going to open it up for questions right away, basically, but just to give you guys all a moment to think of a question that you might want to ask to Adam or maybe even to me. I'll begin by just asking Adam, what's it like to have somebody come stay with you for 3 days, film you in all kinds of like not 24 hours a day, but almost, and then just leave and nothing for many months, and then to have to see this film. This wasn't your first time seeing
Mm.
it, but still, do you recall like what was that process like for you?
Mm. Well, we've got some. One of the things that really sticks out for me in the film, just on the farming side, is that we've had some illness, pretty significant illness in the sheep flock, and so just to see them healthy and strong last fall is very emotional. I mean, the whole film is really emotional. Mattias, even now watching it through for the second time. Um, and I just wanted to pull out one story that it was in there, but I wanted to flesh it out a little bit, which was about serving the food family style, because I think it'll help us get into the discussion a little bit. So when we first, the very first gratitude feast way back in 2018, had no idea what we were doing, just a group of neighbors who were growing some food together after I'd stopped farming for business. And we thought, well, we'd invite the whole town, which was possible because there was a community forum online, and we could just say everyone's invited from the whole town. There will be no charge. But it seemed important to set the tables family style, because if we had the food at a buffet line, well, for one thing, it would take people a really long time to make their way through, and then they wouldn't be able to sit down at the same time and say a blessing before the meal. But it's just always how we'd done it growing up too, that you put the platter in the middle of the table and everyone serves themselves or serves one another. Anyway, so we did that with the help of a caterer in town who got really excited about the meal, the gratitude feast, who had all the platters. And I thought maybe 60 people would show up, and 90 people arrived. So he still divided all the food onto all the platters, and we put one in the center of each table, which now had quite a few more chairs pulled up around them. And then it struck me that everyone knew exactly what to do and how different it would have been to serve the food at a buffet line. And what everyone knew how to do was put a little less on their plate to make sure everyone got something to eat. They weren't trying to make the serving sizes even or fair. They were, and so, like I said in the film, if you make your way down a buffet line, as I do with some regularity, I notice again and again, I pile my plate high. And it really got me thinking that what we're talking about here in terms of the gift economy is really just changing the conditions around our interactions and then watching what emerges, as opposed to making a plan from here where everything is served at a buffet line, which I realized was a pretty ideal metaphor for the grocery store aisle or any store aisle, where you have no idea what the total amount is, what the appropriate portion size is, and you have no idea what the consequence of putting more or less on your plate is, because everyone who might want something to eat is not in view when you're there at the store. So, Mattias, maybe one question for you before we get into it. How was the place different than you imagined, or how was it to put together the story once you left here with all those threads of film? Because I remember you wrote to me once, said, I'm not sure if I can pull this thing together.
Well, luckily Boris did it for me. um, yeah, I had the film was all here. This is my office, and it was all over the floor, and I had um, all the scenes on the top of a line, like different things happening, and then on the bottom was the things that you're talking about and saying, and I was trying to lay together to make it make sense, to have it make sense, and with that method, I was able to make a rough cut, like a something to hand over to Boris. To say these are the things I would like to be in the film, and this is an order that you can start working from. And then luckily he went through all the material again and found Like I didn't have, for example, what you mentioned just now, the thing about the buffet line as opposed to family style wasn't in my original. But Boris found that and put it in, and then when he had put it together in his way, he sent it back to me. So it was quite a lot of back and forth. And then, but it was a little bit tricky because I'm used to doing things my way, and then Boris was doing things his way, and then every place where there was supposed to be music in the film was just like sketches or very unfinished stuff. So it was tricky in different ways. But then at one point, I caught sight of the film somehow. Like at one point, it just struck me that this is quite beautiful. It's hard to see. I don't know. It's probably the same for everybody on this call who's, I don't know, a poet or a musician or like doing some work. It's hard to catch sight of your own work. And but I at one point caught sight of it and saw that this is a pretty extraordinary film, and that it does reflect the original story that Dougal Heinel had told me about this guy who's farming and gifting it all. And it is incredible that this is possible. I mean, you in this time of scarcity and ways of thinking about money that we have from the day we're born, basically, like an interest based economy. Um, and it's just really hard to make ends meet for everybody. And then just to turn that whole thing around is seems like it wouldn't be possible. But I mean, it's similar for Campfire Stories. I mean, it's not the same. Your thing is like so much more radical. That's what I kept thinking. That's where the title came from. That you're kind of doing what I'm doing, but you're like doing it in a radical, um, much more hardcore way. So I'm full of awe, and I don't know if was the answer to the question you actually posed to me, but these are just thoughts that are popping into my head.
Are we ready to invite people to ask questions? Is this a good time for that?
Yes. Let's see if anybody. Oh, so there's, for those of you who may not be super familiar with Zoom, at the bottom you have different buttons, and there's one called React. And if you click React, there's an option to raise your hand. I think there should be an option to raise your hand, isn't there? I don't see it actually on mine right now. I see hearts and claps and oh, raise hand. It's right there. Yeah. So you push that. Oh, see, I'm explaining, but then people are already doing it. I just want to lower my hand and invite. Let's see. Oh, we have Natalie Roy and Stephen Jenkinson on the call. Royalty. Go ahead, Natalie and Stephen. Unmute yourselves, and I'll see if I can pin you here for everybody.
Good morning.
There we go. Good morning.
Well, listen, I wanted to just jump in here out of the gate and say, first of all, I've been on the receiving end of the Mattias treatment more than once now. And it's wonderful to see somebody else in the crosshairs. That's the first thing. And second of all, to know that the lineage is that he left here to go there. So it was the same season. It was the same fit of generosity that possessed him, and the same even-handed honorific that we were on the receiving end of up here earlier in this year. To see it again is a beautiful thing. So I just wanted to high-five everybody involved in the following way. I use the words value and worth. Though you didn't use the word worth there, I think we're talking about the same thing, the same immensely important distinction to make between what people want and their recognition of the inherent worth that lies in the endeavor that produces, in this case, the food. It's a genius observation. And of course, the whole thing is fueled so beautifully by the fact that a mysterious $500,000 rises up out of the earth and disappears back into the earth almost as quickly as it appears. You know, It's not unlike what happened here in some fashion on my farm. And it's just magnificent to see the redemptive, salvific power that people assume as a result of catching wind of a good thing, which both of you have done. And it's such joy to watch. And I'm really, really, really grateful that you've done what you've done.
Well, it's a huge honor to have you, Stephen and Natalie, here. When Mattias said he was going there and then coming here, I thought, wow, well, these are big shoes to step into. Maybe it would have been easier if it was in the other order, but so many of the seeds that you've cultivated there, including that beautiful Hopi blue corn, are growing in the ground here.
Right. I thought I recognized it.
Absolutely germinated and up, covered in rime, so covered in row cover, so the crows don't eat it this time.
Good.
And there's a little puppy here who's supposed to chase them off as well as the chipmunk. So thank you for all you do, you two.
And you.
Thank you so much. Wow. Let's go to Alison Moore. If you could unmute yourself, and I'll see if I can pin you here. I don't know if the Zoom business pins on its own. I'll try to add a pin here. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think I'm unmuted. Am I?
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay. I'm in Driftwood, Texas, of all places. I just wanted to say to Adam, too, that I really appreciate the reference to Lewis Hyde's book, The Gift. And one of my big was his observation that potlatch cultures, which are gift-giving cultures, really believe that the gift only retains its magic if it is kept in motion, that if anyone loses its power.
It was a bit choppy for me to hear you, but I don't know if everybody else heard you fine.
Yeah, the quote from Hyde was that the gift has to stay in motion, which feels very evident at the farm in every moment. I mean, for one thing, the gift of $500,000, which clearly wasn't to me, but did land in my hands for about a year and a half. The title was in my name before I was able to gather a group of neighbors to create a nonprofit, to then gift the title over to the nonprofit so that I don't have to stand holding the bag for all that generosity to make sure it keeps flowing outward.
Thank you so much, Alison. Let's go to Rod Endicott. If you would unmute yourself, and we'll see if when you begin to speak, maybe the Zoom thing will turn your face bigger on our screens.
All right. How about that? Any bigger? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Yeah. My grandmother, not blood grandmother, but grandmother, knitted me these huge, wonderful wool socks that are too warm for me to wear here in Portland, Oregon, but they were dear to me when I was up north. I have a question for you, Adam. You asked at the beginning, what would you refer to the whole that people feel attracted to or energized from? I'm not getting the question exactly right, but I struggle with this all the time. It feels here in Portland, where it's like a hub in America for homelessness. I think I read recently something like 60,000 homeless people. I mean, it's an outrageous number, and I walk by them all the time. And there's always a fear in me of giving something, because I've been in communities where all of a sudden the hand is always out and there's no reciprocity, and it's a dangerous path. And I watch your life and in awe and want to be there. Anyhow, the whole, I want to give it the word spiritual, is what, for me, I can hang the success of my life on, that I honor that. But it's like a turnoff for everyone. I can't use that word. It's a scary word. And so I'm just wondering if you have a word or an ex, a way of defining that whole that makes everything work.
I mean, spirit is just breath. So I'm breathing today. It's quite a blessing to still be breathing. I use about 1,000 words for that. I mean, I love the word. Sometimes I use the word landscape because it's very evident to me as someone who eats mostly just from one little place. I can see myself arising again each day from the land. And that's a huge teacher, that to see the dent in the land from each of my meals. Having the puppy here now and seeing how much meat she eats. So I took her off kibble right off, and we have to raise quite a few more animals. So she's got work to do, and protecting the gardens and the corn crop. And so, I can see there's a dent in this place because she's around. And so that's something that feels like it's not a light thing to carry around, to get to see it in a way that would be very difficult to see at the grocery store, because the shelves, aren't they set up so that the item behind just immediately refeeds? There's no dent left, even if, or at least in the refrigerator case, it's set up so that everything is just immediately refeeding. So you don't ever get to see the dent from your decision to have another meal. So that's maybe one way to describe it. There's a sorrow in it, but it's an alive sorrow, I guess, for me.
Thank you so much, Rod. I'm realizing there's so many there's hands and there's questions in the chat, so I'm a bit confused, and I already apologize if I will miss. I think what we'll do, I'm gonna just there's 4 hands up, so we'll do the 4 hands, and then we'll see if we can get to some of the chat questions. But let's go to Susan Gladwin. If you wouldn't mind switching your video on and your microphone on.
Yes, it should be on for both.
You're good. Yeah.
It looks okay. Hi, Adam, and hi, everybody. I was very touched by the piece. I've been following your work, and I also have been working in clean energy for the last couple of years. And so when you reference solar right out the gate, I was interested to know, like, what's that about? I know we don't want to be paving this land with solar panels, and yet we're using electricity, and solar and wind are important to fit into our ways of getting electricity to do things like Zoom and so forth. And I don't know that much about rural application of solar. It's not necessarily the most appropriate place compared to putting it over parking lots. But I also know that it can be possible for panels to be situated so that livestock can get shade and graze underneath, and bees, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to hear, since the piece started right with that comment,
right.
I just wanted to hear more about that. Thank you.
Well, sure. That's something. So that quote that opened the film actually was from a neighbor of mine who reflected that back after walking around the farm with me. It was the first time we'd met. We walked around the farm for 45 minutes, and he watched how I was oriented toward the past. And that's what he said back to me, which is a real blessing to distill. I'm not, brevity is not my strong suit. So to be distilled in that way. And I guess maybe all I'll say, I don't really have anything specifically to say about solar panels. I mean, I'm really excited about training oxen right now, more than I am about how to finance solar panels personally. Doesn't mean I'm encouraging other people to stop being excited about solar panels at all. I have nothing to say other than I'm interested in weaning off of electricity by and large at the farm. We have a bit of a chest freezer habit because it's so easy, keep some soup from going bad, and then you only have to make a pot of soup every other week versus every other day. Handy. Anyway, so I just find that as I look at the past is where I find the source of gratitude. And I get really excited about gratitude. I find it really enlivening. So gratitude is always coming towards us from the past because it's about what already happened that set the conditions for us to be alive today, which includes the people who arranged for this technological situation. And if I'm going to engage these technologies, sure, I'm grateful to get to talk with you this morning. But most of the time around the farm, I'm not on the internet. We don't actually have internet at the farm or a smartphone or anything. So most of the time I get to be grateful for the firewood that the old man Henry stacked 20 years ago and left that we're still cooking all the food with in the wood-fired oven. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. Let's see if we go to Michaela Stickney. I hope I'm saying that name more or less right.
I pronounce it as Michaela.
Michaela, sorry.
I have relatives who say Michaela. So more just sharing my experience previously and today is I was a neighbor in the early days of the feasts and the soup and the bread gift stand. And I had a really interesting experience because people would enter the stand and they would shake Adam's hand or give him a hug and smile. And then quite a few of them would pull me aside and say, "What's going on here?" Adam had such a lovely Zen way of distilling, "Well, this is a gift stand. We're not accepting money. We're not accepting trades." And people would say, "Well, this business model cannot possibly work. You have to tell them that." And so I was trying to redescribe what is the gift economy, because I had to think a lot about it. What were my own words to describe it? And so what I would say to these questioning individuals were, remove the transaction from this experience. And really, for me, it was less quantification and more connection. And having this experience now and seeing how this gift experience is really flourishing, and it's reflected in all the people from all these different places participating in this experience together right now is really meaningful to me. And I hope that you will take this message back to your neighbors and remember to release your songs and your prayers. So that is my experience.
I'll just add one little piece, which is that Michaela and I dreamed up a scythe school that we hosted during the pandemic where we had 20 neighbors come and learn how to mow grass for hay with scythes, hand scythes. And I think we may have ended up pulling off the largest single field hand mowing in the state of Vermont in probably the last 100 years. And we mowed about 5 acres of hay and fed the animals for a little bit of time. It was quite humbling.
That experience continues. This is year 5, and I have 8 days of side school, as we called it, organized for this year. I've finished 3 days so far, and my time is offered as a gift. I and the other instructors accept no dollars. So sometimes we get a pie, or I took some perennials home from a greenhouse last week, which was really meaningful to me, and they're now growing in my garden. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Michaela. Let's go to Mark Keith, please. If you would unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi.
Adam, it's so good to see you. Sincerely, I long to sing with you again. I'm wondering, I suppose I'm wondering from my poverties in this regard, so forgive any of it that's not generative. I hope sincerely that it is. I'm wondering about what a gift is truly, and how you see it. And specifically, I'm wondering, as it pertains to the farm, was that gift requested? And was it requested explicitly, or perhaps was it a prayer that you were praying through your actions before that that were recognized, and then this was offered you perhaps as a burden that you accepted? And just for fear of ruining what may be a good question or not, I wonder, from my own context, if the ways in which I've asked for support explicitly have disabled the potential for a gift to flow. Can you request a gift?
So there's a lot in there. The gift, gosh, I think about this all the time. And what I've come to recently is that the gift functions as a word to start to move in that direction from here, and here being a place where it's very difficult to understand, to describe any being or relationship without a possessive pronoun attached to it. It's incredible to try to see how attached modern English is to possessive pronouns. So people will say your farm. I'll say, well, it's not my farm. I don't own the farm. I live there. I'm being allowed to live there right now. But if you just start to listen into the language, it's we have to cite something by it being the property of a specific individual. I mean, this continent upon the land upon which I live, the larger continent, is divided up into parcels. Anyway, so whereas there's this beautiful line that David Graeber pulls out from a book called The Life of the Eskimo or something like that, where an Inuit man is saying to the European who's there asking him questions, don't thank me for giving you a gift. It's basically an insult to say, by doing that, you're imagining that I might have done anything else other than share what I have with you. So it helps me to think the gift is from within a language and a society where everything has to be the private property of one individual or another. The gift starts to just lean us in that direction, that the word may not be useful anymore once we get there. And that it could be actually fairly dangerous. We have to watch that we keep updating the language as we, maybe that's one thing. And then specifically on the farm, gosh, I did request the gift. This farm grabbed a hold of me so hard that there wasn't anything else that I imagined I could do other than move here. Actually, 5 minutes in, after I'd snuck under the no trespassing sign, I had to squat and empty my bowels. It was that full on. Once I saw that old barn and those cow stanchions. But
can I just enter here for a second? Because you mentioned that in the interview several times. And I was like, Adam, can we start over? And can you please just exclude that? I don't think the viewers of the film need that image of the squatting down and emptying the bowels. Can you please rephrase it? And now you managed to get it in there anyway. So thanks a lot.
I got it in there.
Sorry, parenthesis.
Yeah, but the conversation with my neighbor who gifted the money was sort of actually all of those things in different moments that you described. Was it requested? Was it a prayer? The process was incredibly intense and emotional for both of us, forging a sort of relationship that doesn't have any precedent. We're not family, but now maybe we are. I was just over helping this person move a few weeks back, and I'm going to be over there on Tuesday, and there's plenty that could be said about it, but at the end, it came down to it was the right time to request, and so I'll say, because people are probably thinking, well, how does the bills get paid? How do things happen at the farm if there's no paid staff? There's no Nothing gets charged, only by making requests. That is the only thing. And so if anything that I'm the lead of here, it's the lead request maker, which means I literally spend most of every day just asking people if they would be willing to consider contributing money or time or an old refrigerator or lumber that's sitting in their barn that they're not being used, that I caught sight of or they mentioned in a conversation. That's most of what I do. I ask that to the sheep, I ask that to the cows, I ask that to the gardens. Would you be willing to flourish? And I asked that to the farm for the first year when it was just me here quietly walking around the place. Would you be willing to host humans again after 20 years of quiet? It's very humbling because the answer very well might be no. We're about to make another budget request here in the next couple of weeks. It'll be about $9,000, and people might decide that the work doesn't seem worth sustaining, and then something will happen. I don't know what. We'll decide we actually don't need to keep the power on at the farm, or we don't need to buy as many bales of hay as we thought we needed, or we'll ask it in a different way.
So to conclude, you don't feel like the request negates the gift?
I mean, I don't feel like the request. No. I don't. They're just different. The is the thing that the person couldn't see, until you made it visible, and the gift that comes as a surprise, which is most of them, including various clothes that I have on right now that people have given me that their teenage kid grew out of because they thought my clothes looked a little threadbare, or this puppy was a gift, came as a surprise. They're just different. They're different. I mean, I imagine, Mark, that you ask your wife sometimes if she'd be willing to drive the kids somewhere so you could sleep for a few minutes longer. That's asking to receive a gift. When she says yes, you receive a gift. She didn't know that you were exhausted until you let her know. Just relationship. Relational maintenance is what I think of it as. Asking to receive gifts is relational maintenance.
Thank you so much, Mark. I see you might have a follow-up, but as the timekeeper here, I think we should move on. Thank you so much for the beautiful questions. Kelly Knight, you have your hand raised.
Hi. Mattias, I just want to first say we've watched most of your films now, and they're so inspiring and motivating us to make changes in our lives and the way we do things. So I just want to thank you for that. And Adam, I wanted to ask if you have noticed any spin-off community projects inspired by your farm. Have you noticed folks in your community doing similar things? Not necessarily food, but anything. I'm curious, in part because we live in an urban area with not a lot of land, and I'm curious to hear about how these community-wide systems could be put in place. That's all. Thank you.
Yep. Yes, lots. And I could certainly tell a lot of those stories. There's some that are quite large and there's some that are quite small. I'll tell you one of the small ones, which is that I received an email from someone who reads the newsletter a couple of weeks ago, and she asked if we could talk about how she might stop charging for the work that is her work to do in the world, which is assisting women in giving birth to children. She's a midwife. And the nuances of those specifics. So what we got into was the specifics of her relationships with the people who in the past have received her labors and the various things they've said to her. And so there's no plan that I could give her. It was mostly just teasing out where's the scarcity and what is your capacity to trust fall into your neighbors and invite them to carry you. And what that'll look like for her. She did say something really interesting, which was that when she has said, I'm not willing to put a price tag on my work, she's had some people who've said, well, that's great. Healthcare should be a human right anyway, so it should be free. It's a bit of a dead end if we go down that road that everything should be free, that we deserve everything, and it doesn't have a consequence, because this is a real person who has children of her own and still needs money. So, it takes a lot of conversation. It's so intimate. The work is so intimate and relational, insights and specific. Sometimes I think just the simplest way to begin is who in your circles, with whom do you not keep track of everything? Favors. Whom do you not keep a mental tally sheet? And how could you expand that by a couple people, add a couple people into that, which might mean just recklessly showing up to help them weed their garden or stack their firewood or do something. It might look like a whole lot of other things. But sometimes I do say explicitly to people, I'm not going to do anything to protect myself from your taking advantage of me. Sometimes I'll say that explicitly, and something completely shifts in someone. Oh, well, then it's up to me to figure out how to be in relationship with you. You're not going to prescribe what it looks like. And that's where people get beautifully creative.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Kelly, and I'm happy to hear that you watched most of the films. 3 more that I'm working on right now, so the autumn is stacked with new releases. So that's good stuff coming. All right, we've reached the end of the raised hands, so I will go now to the chat, and hopefully I've scrolled back, so hopefully I get all of them and in the right order. And this, Adam, you've already kind of answered this, but anyway, let's give it another go. From Hamilton Wallace. Adam, how do you generate money to buy supplies, etc.?
Yeah, so I get excited about really transparent requests for financial sustenance. And so we try to really detail every little thing. We imagine that despite our best efforts, we still have to use money for. The most ideal budget request to me would be $0, because then all these little things that we still spend money on, we would replace with relationships. The farm might use about $18,000 this year, and that's going to mostly go towards things like the electric bill, the hay that will ideally be made here once the oxen grow up and can do that work. Things like that. We don't have any insurance, which so far I've gotten away with. Try to imagine the neighbors as the insurance policy instead.
I think the next question here is similar. I'll read it, but I think it's the same question basically. It's from Fritz Schrag. It says, I love the film and the messages, but the film leaves out how you get gifted to make all of this happen. How do the gifts you obviously need to make this happen reach you? How do the gifts reach you? Is that the same question, or does it need another?
The vast majority of what sustains the effort here is human labor. And so every week we have multiple times a week we have community work days, and people come help. Like on Thursday, we're going to have a cook night. And so we're going to process a whole bunch of the sweet potatoes and potatoes that have been gifted to the farm by other farmers who are friends of ours who set aside things that are going to otherwise go bad. And so folks maybe will come, maybe no one will show up. Usually at least a few people show up and help peel and chop and cook and roast, and then we have food to serve. The firewood that we'll use that night to cook the food was left by the old man here. On Sundays, we have work days where sometimes we'll have 20 plus people show up to weed the gardens and plant and harvest, preserve food. So the money's a pretty small piece of it. And partially, and that, obviously that's because someone gifted the land, so there's no mortgage payment. But I'd like to invite us to imagine that that's not impossible for that to happen. It could have, instead of one single person gifting $500,000, it could have been 500 people gifting smaller amounts of money. It could have been, in the town where I was in Vermont, there was no home base for the farm. We only grew food and grazed animals in various corners in people's yards and fields. Having a home farm is not necessary to do this work on a small scale.
Thank you. From Jesse Jones, what actions inspired in people? Wait, I'm not reading this right. What actions inspired in people by watching this film might surprise and delight you? What actions inspired in people by watching this film might surprise and delight you? Yeah.
I know exactly which one. So there are folks who are involved with the farm who I know wrestle with some of these ideas, and then they'll be going away for the weekend and they'll take their dogs or cats to board them at the kennel. And then every once in a while, one of them comes to me and says, Adam, I got brave and I asked my neighbors if they would watch the dogs. And it was amazing. That's it. Just ask the neighbor kid to mow the lawn and don't offer to pay her. And see what happens, see what wells up in you, how many pies you start baking or whatever else you start doing.
Oh, it's hard to be present here and then to read the questions but let's see here because some of these are comments, and so I'll just scan for the questions. I don't know if that's a question. Squatting bowel. There's a lot of squatting bowel comments, so that's good. Maybe we've reached the end. Maybe let's go. I'm too dizzy, like trying to do the thing and be here. So let me just take a break from that. And anybody who feels that they have not been heard and they have a question, please raise your hand and we'll invite you. It's much easier for me on this setup to just see a hand. And in the meanwhile, let's. I'm so grateful for 80 people showing up here on this call, and I'm so happy that I found you through Communal Friends, Adam, and was given an opportunity to get to know your corner of the world, and I'm hoping that there's something in this film, like that there's. We call it rings on the water in Sweden. What do you call that? Like rippling out from some of the films that I put together and put out there in the world. And this one particularly, I hope that people get brave when they see it. And I thank you, Adam, for being brave enough to invite me over. Nancy Palmer has her hand up. Please unmute yourself, Nancy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for this. I have two questions. The first one, this is my second time watching the film, and Adam, you said something to the effect of it would have been easier to not accept the gift. You kind of said it in offhand, but I wonder if you could elaborate on that. So that's my first question, and then I have another small one after that.
Oh, just, I mean, I feel the weight of it every day. You know, when you've purchased something, it doesn't feel heavy carrying it around, but when something's been rested on your shoulders, it's hard for me to stay in bed past 4 a.m. Let's just say that. Once all the work that the farm is ready to do in the world, that it needs human hands to do, I feel that every day. Yeah, the willingness to feed humans, the willingness to build relationships, to heal, to create medicine. I have to go away from the farm to get more sleep often. Luckily, there's a spot I can walk to that's just about 45 minutes away. If I leave my watch and my phone at the farm, I can sleep for a whole day up there in the woods.
Thank you. I forget about that part with gifts. Thank you. The second question I had was, I think I saw this in your newsletter at some point, but just navigating the family piece and who was the gratitude piece and who was attending and who wasn't. You said something to the effect of, this endeavor will succeed or continue or not based on, all of these people attending, and just that part of adding the or not. I was wondering if you could speak about that, because I think sometimes with these endeavors, there's the burden of the work and also this expectation or hope that it will end a certain way or end a certain way. So I just thought it was interesting that you put that in explicitly. You said or not.
Absolutely.
So maybe could you speak to that a little bit?
Maybe this circles back to that, what is a gift? And giving a gift is releasing control over how the story turns out. As if I were to sell you a pound of ground beef, I would walk away with X number of dollars that I demanded in order for you to satiate your hunger. And then each of those would allow me to control how the story turned out. But if I give it to you as a gift, the story's in your hands, the story of whether, so there's a lot of releasing control, and I think of it as a trust fall sometimes, but that's where all the beauty comes from, all the things that I couldn't have.
Thank you.
So I don't think it would be the end of the world farm to go quiet. The farm was quiet for 20 years, just deer and turkey and all of them were running around those fields, and the house is slowly melting into the ground, the old farmhouse. I don't think that would be the end of the world for that to happen again, but the land would never be sold. That's protected now in the bylaws of the nonprofit.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It's amazing. You're with us from a train, it looks like. That's technology. Amazing. A very, very brief story from me, and then I'll turn it over to you, Adam, if you have any closing remarks. We're coming up on the 3 minutes to go. I just thought now of something, which is that we have some hens, 8 of them at the moment, and so they produce eggs. And certain times of year they produce an abundant, like it's just more than we can eat. And we used to sell them. And I had this, like, I was trying to figure out, is it possible to sell enough eggs that can pay for the feed that we give to, like, that we can make it like a zero game for us to keep the hens. We give them the love, the profit, the money that comes from selling the eggs will pay for the feed, which seemed like, I thought that at the time seemed like a beautiful thing, or beautiful enough experiment to try. But for various reasons, we stopped selling them. It was just seemed odd. Like there was so much that went into, and still does go into keeping hens. Anybody who knows about chickens and hens and roosters and what it takes knows something about that. And just then to sell the eggs for 60 cents a piece or whatever, it just didn't feel right anymore, and so we stopped selling them. And it's just interesting because now when we have an abundance, we give them to our neighbors, and it's just such a different thing to give. Just you feel the value of what you're giving. Let's say I'm giving 8 eggs to my neighbor just over here, and it's just so different from like receiving money for it. Then it's one type of transaction, but to give it, it just opens up a different way of. I don't know. I just imagine him eating them for breakfast, and he. I don't know. I'm not as eloquent as you are, Adam, but it's just a different feeling for me now that we stopped selling the eggs and we just give them away. It just feels different. I'll leave it at that, and I'll work on my eloquence for the next encounter. Ah, Adam,
I
final.
just want to raise you up, Mattias, and the work that none of this conversation, none of this would have been possible if you hadn't. By the end of your time here, I remember how exhausted you were. In fact, I had to work on not taking it personally that you said, I'm actually not going to stay the last night at the farm. I'm going to go
Sorry.
up to Ottawa or wherever you're going to fly out from, and I'm going to sit and I'm going to walk the city streets as an anonymous human being. Just the immense labor and a quality of attention that you brought here, both to the story, but also to the place itself and its many, many beings. I mean, that's how there's a film, and that's why the film is what it is, and that's why it brings me to tears every time I watch. So, and the fact that no one is excluded from the table, from the screening, based on that people who are out there in the world hungering for these stories, their first job isn't to go get the dollars. They can just show up and then figure out how they can participate in other ways. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who showed up. This talk was recorded. I hope that the technology was with me, and so it will be released. If you have a friend who you want to send the link to, you'll find this probably released on the Campfire Stories YouTube channel, I would imagine. Thank you so much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the day wherever you are in the world. And what's a good final word? Adam, I'll leave to you to say the final word. You have the gift of the poetry.
I'll just sing us out with one of the songs that we've been singing at the farm recently, especially to our ailing sheep. People can just click out as they see fit. White the sheep that gave the wool, green the pastures where they fed, blue and scarlet side by side, bless the warp and bless the thread. May the charm of lasting life be upon your flocks in full. From the hill where they rest, may they both rise both whole and well. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. So what you just saw was a recording of a live event, and ahead of each new release from Campfire Stories, we are going to put together another one of these types of events with invited guests, and there will be always a live audience in attendance. And if you would like to be invited to be in that live audience, there's 2 ways that you can do that. The first one is if you go to the member tab of the YouTube channel, the Campfire Stories YouTube channel, and become a member, then you will automatically be invited to these events coming up. And the other way is if you go to Patreon, and patreon.com/Mattias Olsson, and become a member there. You will also always be invited to these events. And there's 2 levels on both Patreon and on the membership. There's the reduced rate and the regular rate, and they both give the same perk or the same invitation, the same everything, and the different levels are there because I don't know what your economy is like. So maybe it suits you better to pay regular or to pay reduced. Either way, join as a member here on YouTube or join as a Patreon, and I'll see you on the next release event. Thank you for watching, and until the next time.